Welcome to the Wild Wisdom Podcast, where we learn how to heal our hearts, find our voices, and step into our authentic power as the wild women that we were destined to be. I'm your host, Jessica Love. Settle into whichever way you like to listen to the Wild Wisdom Podcast, and let's get started. We're using a new platform today, so I'm really excited, and we get to test it out with this beautiful woman, Taylor Briggs. So everyone, just welcome Taylor to the podcast. She is a wild woman for sure. She is a spiritual medicine guide, energy worker, and spiritual embodiment coach dedicated to bridging the gap between where you are and where your soul is calling you to be. She teaches yoga, spiritual self-study tools, and deep energetic work, and creates spaces where individuals feel free to be seen, heard, and empowered to reclaim their personal medicine. Now, Wild Wisdom, Wild Women gang, I'm telling you, I got to speak with Taylor before this episode for quite some time, and I am so glad that she's here with us because she has been through such a powerful journey, and my prayer is that her story and her spiritual journey and the medicine that she's bringing to this space is going to just like ripple out into the hearts of all of you listening and watching. I just got chills. So welcome, Taylor.
And the whole time you were talking, I just got chills. I was like, oh, that's me. I was like, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I feel more empowered since we were speaking. I literally feel more empowered now than I did like 20 minutes ago when we first started.
Oh, I'm grateful that you have that experience. You're feeling that way.
Right. I had to sprinkle some fairy dust your way. Well, as you know, we're astrology girlies, or I should say astrology women.
Yeah.
In this community, I'm curious, what are your big three?
Right. I am a Scorpio sun on the cusp of Sag. I am a Virgo moon and an Aries rising.
Okay. So I love that you shared with me that you're traveling on your Pluto line, because literally that must feel more at home than you realize because you're a Scorpio sun. That's really cool. Pluto rules Scorpio.
Yeah.
When you were sharing that with me, I kept wanting to ask, where do you have Scorpio in your chart?
Yeah.
Right. Something I'll confess to you, and I'm going to confess this to our audience too. I'm really trying to decondition the stereotypes I have about zodiac signs, even the positive ones. I'm in this astrology course, like certification class right now, and our teacher recommends like keeping an open mind and staying curious about the different placements instead of being like, this is the way.
This is who it is.
So I'm going to stay curious, but I am curious, and I guess this will be my first question. So I'm curious for you in the work that you do, how would you say like your big three relates to your medicine practice, your space holding practice, your yoga practice?
Wow. Right. I feel like it's a tough space to be in. Like I tried, like you said, like not put everything into a box, but to have, the Scorpio and Aries fire, right? Like I have this, I have such, this fiery Scorpio that's very passionate. So like I'm very passionate about anything that I'm doing. The passion flows through it almost to a point where it probably becomes a little unhealthy. Because it's just like when I want to do it, this is what I love to do. This is what I want, like the people that I'm helping, like my clients, it's very like, I'm very passionate about it. But then that Virgo is like, but like, why isn't this in order? Right? So like trying to keep it in order, and then that rising, and that's how I know like sometimes it also just can be tough. Because I'm going to I very much tell it like it is. And it's not something that always resonates with everybody. And I think all three of them kind of have those stigmas, right? Like Scorpios are going to show you yourself. A Virgo is going to be like, you're not doing this right. And then the Aries is just going to say it. And they're not going to say it in the nicest way. And I think it definitely plays out in my supporting others, because I can't just work with anybody, right? Like I can't just have any client. I can't just have I'm not going to hold your hand through this, right? Like I'm not going to baby you and I might show you like I'm going to give you compassion. I'm going to give you all the grace, but I'm going to be like, it has to be done. And then also setting those boundaries is like, wait, like, I need a moment to like, when you come at me with all that energy, like, wait, let's sit and ground in this first. And the way that I say it might not be the most resonant with everybody because it's going to come off tough, but it's like, it's still from a loving place, right? Like, it's just passionate and like straightforward. And I really like, it's just how I've always ran any business that I've done. My friends know, like, if I need somebody that's going to say something, like, I need your opinion on this, because they know I'm going to give them the truth. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And so it shows up that way. But I don't think I would have it any other way. I think there's so many people out here that want to do the coddling and the hand holding and, the inauthentic fluffy stuff. But if I'm here to show you and guide you into authenticity, then I have to be authentic with you. And that's how the universe has been with me. They don't sugarcoat shit. My spirit guides, like, right?
Taylor, like that's literally how so many of like the spiritual gurus that we study and we learn, like at our yoga teacher training and in our spiritual practices, like they weren't very fluffy either. It's more like the newer guides like Ram Dass and who I love and like Thich Nhat Hanh. Like it's not that they're not beautiful, but that like new kind of like loving, like nourishing, compassionate side is like, or that the way of being compassionate through gentleness is kind of new. Like in the past, people were compassionate, spiritual teachers were compassionate through what you just said, discipline and boundaries and telling you how it is. And I'd love to share this Buddhist Sutra with you if I can. I learned in a course is essentially there was this guy and he was trying to find awakening. And he went to a monk and he said, "How can I awaken?" And the monk literally slapped him across the face and said, "Go home." Then he went back. So there wasn't a lot of coddling going on. Then he went back to the monk. He said, "How can I awaken?" And the monk slapped him across the face and said, "Go home." And he was doing this like every day for years. Like all these things had passed. He literally, like his son moved and like left his house. Something happened, like his partner was kind of like, okay, I guess we're not really in a relationship anymore, whatever. Like all these things happen. And one day he decides to give up and he goes into this marketplace and it's pouring rain and he's crying and he looks up with joy and he realizes that he's awakened.
I love that.
And I wanted to share that because I felt like you need to hear it for some reason. And also because what we were saying of like, sometimes we need that guru to literally slap us across the face.
Yeah.
No, you're not here. And also what he did in that sutra is he said, go figure it out yourself. Like that's kind of what he did. And sometimes that's the most compassionate thing we can do.
Like, go figure it out. And like, and maybe because that kind of resonated with, like you said, like the newer age is like, let's positive our way through this. And I think to share, we try to, this new age stuff is to stay positive. So I found out yesterday one of my friends from high school passed away. And
Sorry.
I just happened to thank you. And we've not been in touch. It's just like, think life and everything. And I knew there were like struggles with like her family dynamic and stuff. But when I saw it on Facebook, I immediately tried to be like, just think of all the good things, right? Like, think of all the good things and you'll be okay. That was my first instinct because I'm still like, I'm navigating this, right? This authentic way of expressing ourselves. And I was just like positive, like I was trying to positive my way through it, right? So think of all the happy moments, right? Think of all the moments from middle school and the laughter and all this other stuff. And like, yes, those things existed. And I was just trying to deny myself. And then 5 minutes later, I just bust out crying. And I let it happen. And I thought about like, all of the things, right? Like how this would affect everybody. And then I went back to those happy thoughts, right? And then I went back to the laughter. And then I commented, I reached out to her sister. I commented on my friend who was talking about some of those happy moments, and I felt better, right? Like, and I didn't try to bypass. And today there's a lot of bypassing. There's constantly bypassing. And even by the people who are talking about the bypassing, some of the stuff that I see, I'm just like, no, you're trying to bypass all these steps. And like you said, like you have to go through it. We have to go through all of these motions like that man did in the sutra, right? Like you have to go through the losing a partner, your son growing up, and you have to go through it. You have to feel it. You have to acknowledge it. But a lot of that new age stuff or newer stuff, and like you said, I love Ram, right? Like I don't think I wouldn't be here if it wasn't, you know what I mean? Like I wouldn't have started if it wasn't for Ram, right? But I also wouldn't have started if it wasn't for somebody like Alan Watts, who was kind of like a little bit more, you know, a little more slap in the face, right?
He's got his big three. We should pull it up later because I actually like the beautiful context of what you're saying. But just for shits, can we just look this up really quick?
Yeah, let's get it.
I mean, I don't know if we're able to access it because he's a Capricorn. Well, that's kind of funny though, because so Capricorn Sun, Virgo Moon, interesting, Sagittarius rising. So yeah, so you guys have that Virgo Moon in common, which is just that practical. It's a healer. The Virgo Moon is a healer, but it's practical. Like, okay, so this is how it is. It reminds me of doctor energy. Like, do you ever go to a doctor and you're like, my foot hurts, and they're like, okay, like, and like elevate it, and you're like,
just like no, like yeah.
And I just want to honor you for like that path you've been on, and I think that is so beautiful. It's like through that pain, and you, like you said too, it's like, yeah, these are the people who we connected with, right? And that's okay, because I think also there's this balance we're all learning. I think if you're on a spiritual path of knowing when. So when do you go to the underworld, and you're in a death portal, and when do you know when to get out and like be in a light portal? And it's like that balance of, I think we learn through the opposite extreme. So if you've been in this like love, like woo-woo, like I'm just not going to watch the news and I'm just not going to give a shit. It's like, okay. So if you've been in that, you're like, I'm just going to stay in my positivity bubble. It might be time to visit the underworld. I'm not saying the underworld, but I don't know why I'm saying that. I don't know what that means. But what I would say is like a death portal, shadow work.
Yeah.
Feel the things that are coming up for you, because we are all being impacted by everything on this earth always. Some of us more than others, but it is impacting you if you're a human breathing. So you gotta be able to confront those shadows. But if you're like every day for years and years, shadow work, okay.
When you come out of it.
Right. Let's get out of that. Let's breathe. You know, let's like go buy yourself a cupcake, sit down, and like that is the time to celebrate life. But we don't know what extreme we're on until we experience the imbalance. And so I feel like I have this personal story I want to share, but I want to ask you a question about what you just shared. So I'm like torn between the two. I'm going to share it anyway, if that's okay.
Okay.
And then I want to come back
and then go to the question.
Because I'm feeling, you were talking about boundaries, and I don't want to discredit what you were saying, because I feel like I've been on a similar path too, and I think that is like the healer you were just talking about, that sutra. And I spent a lot of time in shadow work for a while. I have Saturn in my first house where you did, yeah, and so you know how that is. And we can talk more about too, like what that was like kind of being parentified and stuff like that, and like the maturity you get so early in life. And when I went to go sit with grandmother, and I mean this with the most amount of reverence, like such a beautiful medicine, I thought that I was going to get like my soul ripped out of my heart, because that was what I heard. It's like the ultimate shadow work, and it's so hard and it's so painful, and I'm going to be like throwing up and screaming and like seeing demons. And so that was like literally what I prepared myself for. I told my teacher that my biggest fear was that I was going to rip my eyes out, and she laughed, kind of like laughed. She was like, oh, okay. And my experience was very beautiful. I mean, they're all beautiful. I can't say, like, if it's a painful experience, you're meant to have it. If it's a light experience, you're meant to have it. But I was met with a certain amount of softness that I wasn't expecting. Like softness and love. And joy. And it was like a 3-night series, and the last night, like, it was all like joy and love. And I was like
I love
dancing on a
that.
cloud. I felt spirit guides were dancing on a cloud. And it was funny because, and I didn't get sick, and I didn't feel, I mean, I felt scared a little bit at first because it was such a new medicine, but it was so beautiful. And it was interesting how I had kind of prepped myself. I almost like gassed myself up, but not really. It's more like prepped myself, like with this armor. I was just adding like these shields and these armor to go into this experience for it to be so scary and to be fighting a dragon. But in reality, like, my dragon was like the cute little sleeping dragon in like How to Train Your like, I was just like, we were just like hanging out. So I also wanted to bring that into our space to show the duality. But anyway, so I want to hear from you about your experience in like balancing those like boundaries as a businesswoman and also as a healer. Have you ever been in any of those distortions of like the too much shadow work, the too much hustle? Have you ever had those experiences where you're in like the disillusionment? Like, tell us more about that. Whatever you feel safe sharing, I think would be cool.
Yes. So much. As a, like, it's things come at you left and right, I think. And I've definitely been in, deep shadow periods and not being able to, like, and clawing myself out of it and clawing myself back up to the light. And I've been in business now for 5 years, and I started with a hair business, and now, and then slowly gotten into all of this, the spiritual work, which I think I don't know what the trend is. I don't know what it is about hairdressers and spiritual work, but I haven't met one yet. Like, every time I turn around, it's just like, hey, like, like, I know
It's a type of
for
healing.
me, it's just, it's another type of healing. And it's spiritual work in and of itself. And historically, I think when you think of like barbers back in the day, right? Like, if you think of a barber, the barber is where you would go for medical work. So, like, I think that's kind of like where it's kind of, which is why the blue and white pole, right, for barbers was actually more of a medical symbol, which is why that, right. And so I think that's kind of like where it kind of segued as it became more of a feminine-led industry as well, because it was more like men were the hairdressers and the barbers. And so I think as we stepped into that role as women, it's come with this very spiritual aspect to it. But back to, so I think I started learning in the first years of that. Just making sure I had certain boundaries with my clients, numbers that they can reach out to me, numbers that they can, like, you can only reach out to me on this number during these times, not responding, getting to that point where I was like doing that. And then when I got into like yoga and healing and stuff, I forgot all about that. Like, I forgot all about all those boundaries, and it just became, I want to help whoever. I don't care what time they message me. I don't care, I don't care, what comes with it. Like, I don't mind, right? Like, I forgot. And I also was very particular about like getting involved with clients, right? Like becoming friends and being like, maybe dating or anything like that. And again, I got into this healing phase and it just totally all went out the way. Not necessarily dating anybody, but like building friendships and connecting with people. And because that's my role, a lot of lines started getting blurred, right? Like, where I wasn't your friend, I was just your free therapist, like, right? Your free therapist and stuff. And I was like, you didn't do this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you should have just urged them to come to yoga, right? Like, you should have just urged them to like set up this session. So I'm in this place now where I kind of burned myself out, because I was not only doing my actual work, but then it bled into my personal life because I wasn't holding those boundaries. And as time we're on now, it's like, okay, like this person isn't reaching out to me as a friend, right? They're reaching out for me to guide them in some way. I know. Right. And now I have to now I have to identify these things at a different level than where it was just so much easier with the hair, like in my hair business, right? Now it's more, now I have to have such stronger discernment than what I ever had before, because somebody called me, I want my hair done. Yes, the conversations, they flow or whatever, and they might feel better at the end of it, but we still had that reciprocal exchange. We're in this healing space. It's just us having a conversation. And where does the conversation become me being your friend to me being holding space for you, and only holding space for you, and not where does the reciprocality come into that? And
that's supposed to be like the beautiful part of our relationships is like it's not that we're never going to hold space for our friends and family, but there should be this like reciprocal give and take. And like you said, boundaries, right? So, if you're my friend and you cut hair and I want a haircut from you, I'm not going to expect you to just come over and do it for free. But if you were going to come over and do it, I'd be like, hey, can I give you a tarot reading in exchange?
Yeah.
Or can I cook? Or, you know what I mean? Can I take you out for lunch? Like, it's this like friendship, and also with our clients, there's an energy exchange. It just so happens with clients, it's typically financial in service, like with your hair cutting business, or it could also be, like an energy, like a work trade. But either way, like, that's just the laws of the universe. It's like reciprocal energy, give and take. It's not. Unless it's a present, but even that is giving it. It's like reciprocal.
It's giving,
right?
reciprocal, yeah.
Or it's your graduation. I want from my heart, and I feel like as healers we get burnt out, and we're like, well, I would never do. Like, I've met some healers and coaches that are like, I never work for free, and I would never do charity work. And what I'm thinking is, it's because they're burnt out with the work they're currently doing.
Yeah.
So, if you were getting paid well for your services, if you were having good boundaries with your clients, and you were in overflow, then every once in a blue moon, you probably would feel it on your heart to donate something. You probably would feel it on your heart to do some charity work, because you know that you're overflowing. But when you're in that scarcity energy of all, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, here I am, I'm coaching my friends and I'm not getting paid for it. And I'm also not their friend anymore because they're not holding space for me. So there's like this weird thing. Or, I see that too. Like, we've been in business for around the same time. Like, mine's 7, like I'm a couple of years ahead of you, I guess, like 7 years in business. You've been in business for 5. So these are things that we've learned, over the last little while now, I think are the hardest at the beginning. I'm curious for you if I could offer you something. So like some light coaching in this moment as you're sharing this, of like learning these boundaries. Like, I wonder what it might look like for you to, I know it's tough when you're traveling, because that's like one of the best parts about being a guide is like you get to travel, but even if you're traveling, like having a location where like that's your chair, like when you were a hairstylist. So it's like, in that workstation, like that's where people come in, and almost like looking at them, your clients, through that lens. I used to coach coaches, and I would say, look at them like you're a doctor, not in a way of like, oh, I'm going to fix you, but like doctors are just confident. They ask you questions, they help you, and then you leave, and you don't call them.
Right. You don't have access to them 24/7.
You don't have access to them 24/7. But I understand, like, it can be blurry, and there might be certain times too where you meet somebody and they are your client and there's a spark, whether it's a friendship spark or it's a flirty spark. And I think that we learn through that discernment, because I've definitely had both. Like, well, I've only ever like tried to date a business coaching client once. It did not end well. I wouldn't recommend it for anybody. And what I realized is, on that first consultation, when I felt that flirty energy, when I felt that there was something more, I should have clocked that. And as the coach, been like, okay, you're not my client.
Yeah.
And so I've learned through that experience, that was like, several years ago, that I will never ever do that again. Right. And same thing with friends, of like, then it gets a little blurry, and that's okay. Like, we do learn as we grow, and as long as everything is like consensual and everybody's adults, like, we can heal from these things. But you got to be able to clock those patterns of, okay, like, I feel like I have to give to certain people in areas that I'm not meant to. Or like you said, like why, if you were an accountant, you wouldn't go to your dinner with your friend with your laptop and like your accounting spreadsheets. So why,
Right.
why are you client text in the bathroom at dinner?
Right.
I don't know. I'm curious though for you. So when or how has your practice and also like how has your capacity to hold space changed since you started implementing those boundaries?
Honestly, right now where I am, I can only hold space for so many, like right now it's like very like 2 to 3 people. And
Okay.
like we were kind of discussing before we got on the call, I just got to this place where I've just been hustling still. Like I've been in that hustle, and do, take every opportunity, hold space for this group, hold space for this. And my nervous system has been kind of shot, which is why I'm traveling this summer and just really taking as much space as possible for myself, like refilling my container, because it's not been that balance. Like, and I've been doing that, like understanding, like, hey, I'm not doing this, like asking myself these questions. Like, what are we doing this for? Why, like, what's our purpose behind this? Why are we why are we saying yes to this? And really telling myself to take a pause before saying yes and really just being honest, like, hey, I'm not doing this right now. Like, a few days ago, somebody messaged me like for an event on today, right? Like they were like on Tuesday, hey, I have this pop up on Tuesday, on Saturday. Can you do this? And like, I mean, no, I can't. One, I'm traveling, but two, like it's too last minute. Right? Like it's so last minute and like I can't work in that ASAP energy. Like, right? Like I can't keep operating in that. First of all, I'm one person in handling all the things, right? So my social media, all this other stuff, I've not built that like that team yet because my Virgo is like, you're not. My Virgo is like, we can't give up control of this. And my Virgo's like, nobody's gonna do this, right? But us. And that's okay. I understand that about myself. And eventually we'll get to a place where we have to, we get that support. But also I won't be able to have space for that support unless I have that space within myself. So right now it's my capacity is lower and I know it's like very lower, like the tolerance is very low and this isn't the best time for me to try and carry a heavy load, but that's me setting the boundary, right? A year ago I would have still been pushing through, right? Like I'd still be pushing through all this other stuff and I even limited my hair clients and I was like, I don't want, for a while, like last year, I started saying like, I don't want any new clients. And, the universe was like, okay, we'll give you a little bit less, right? Because this is too much. And just setting those boundaries, speaking it and just honoring that, like, this is what I can handle right now. Because I have poured so much, not only just in this time of building my business, but across the whole span of my life, I've poured more than I've ever received. And it's time for me to just receive and receive from myself. It's not even just about receiving from other people. I have to give me all of me and give maybe a little bit more to the public. Right? And to my clients, or a little bit, not more, but less to other people, right? Less access, less. I mean, I changed my number this year. I'm like I don't want group chats on my phone. Like like, like I don't want to be in any group chats. I just don't have the capacity for that. I don't want to be, reached out to for all of these things, and it came to that point where I was asking people for support, right? Like, can I have, like, I was seeking funding for support. I was working with a coach and saying, like, I need more support. I need, like, I want to do these things. And they give me a task list. And I'm like, I'm already burnt out with the task list that I already have for myself. And you're giving me all these things. And I was just like, this isn't going to work. So let's do less. And even a little bit more less. And it's all aligning for me. And I'm grateful that I've set those boundaries. I'm setting those boundaries. I'm not letting the messages flood through. I'm taking very few consultations. I am pouring into myself. And by me doing that and me speaking about it, I'm hoping that it's a inspiration for other women to do, right? Like, because the internet's going to tell you need to be doing all of these things, right? I mean, and if you go towards my feed, like I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. Like when I was starting to feel burned out, I'm going to do this nervous system reset, right? And I was like, I'm going to do ice baths and yoga and work out and this and this. And the list got longer and longer of all these things to do. And that's what the internet will tell you. You need to do all of these things.
Right.
When in actuality, our systems just need to rest.
Yeah.
I just need to rest. And I need to get into my body through resting, right? Get out of my head as much as possible. But I need to rest. I don't need to do more. And I'll share this real quick because it seems like you have a question, but I had this dream 2 or 3 years ago. It's just one of those dreams that will never leave my memory. And it was like a zombie apocalypse. And the zombies kept giving me tools. They kept giving me, like, right? Like the zombies, they were like, slow, and they would give me like a weapon, right? They'd give me a gun. And then the gun would disintegrate. Or they give me like a harpoon or something, and then it would like just break into pieces, right? Like it was such an odd thing. And like they weren't really chasing me, they were handing me these things, but they were like still, and I'm still running like in a way, because there's no zombies. And I finally get into this house and like, lock the door behind me, and it was just like this abandoned space, because a zombie apocalypse. Then I like look into the screen, and I usually have these screens and it's just that static or whatever. And then I finally wake up. It's probably just me leaving the space. And I like pondered on it, and I was just like, what is that? And then I spent some time on social media. And I realized that the zombies are those people online giving us all of these tools that really won't work for me, right? And maybe not even work for somebody else. Where we don't need to do more. We've been told do more, do the DMs, like, you know what I mean? Like set up the automations, do the DMs, do this, do that. Plus on top of it, go lit. And not saying that any of these things aren't like beneficial, but when it becomes 20, 30 things that I have to do for my business, 20, 30 things that I have to do for my body, 100 different supplements that I need to take at the end, then show up in work, show up for my family, show up for my friends. It's damn great. I don't know what it would be like to have children, right? Like if I had a child too on top of that, right? And they're constantly bombarding people with all of these things. And it's like, maybe we don't need to do more. Maybe we need to do less.
Yeah.
And
wow,
that's where I am, because it's just like, I don't need to do more. And I'm excited, like, but in a way, I need to do more of what lights me up and less of the things that I feel like I'm healing myself or fixing, like constantly fixing, where maybe I just need to take a nap. Every day.
Maybe you need to take a nap today.
Yeah.
And understand that you're doing enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's, I just want more people to find that freedom in that, like that. And it's like, you don't have to, I mean, I've been the yo-yo dieting and the, going from, I've been on a spectrum of binge drinking to like, okay, now I'm going to totally keep myself away from it. And then instead of just finding that balance, right? Like you don't have to have, nobody's saying you don't need to not. You don't need to not drink. It's just maybe you don't need to have 10 every weekend, right? Like,
Right.
it doesn't have to be
It's
these
it's
extreme.
Mm-hmm.
And
You know,
yeah.
I just want to tell you this, if I can, with the extremes, I want to really bring this like full circle. I don't know if you saw, but a couple episodes ago, I had my fitness and business coach, Angelica, on, and she was talking about this with fitness and health. And she said one of the biggest issues is women just keep adding things on our to-do list. And the reality is you have to actually do less to achieve more. She also has Scorpio and Aries in her big three, by the way. So that's really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
We both kind of we do have a similar vibe. So it's cool to see that. And I also wanted to bring in that this is not medical advice. Disclaimer: this is not medical advice. If you're struggling with a diagnosed eating disorder, please talk to a doctor. But I want to share this with you. So when I was in recovery from anorexia, one of the biggest issues I had was binge eating, and because I had been restricting for so long. And so there were certain things that I was scared to eat. And one of them was trail mix, because if I started eating trail mix, I would end up eating like the whole bag for dinner and thought that that was normal. And so my therapist said, okay, this is what you have to do. The next week, you have to take the bag of trail mix, take whatever the serving size is, measure it out into little mini bags, put it in your cabinet, and you have to have one every single day.
Okay.
So I was like, so I would sit down, I would eat my bag of trail mix, and then I eat the next day. And then 3 days into that, I didn't want it anymore. I was over it. I was like, this isn't, and I literally rarely eat trail mix now. But I wanted to share that because like we're so used to these extremes of, you know, in the past I would have been like, I just can never buy it. I can never eat it again. Like I have to go, you know, faster for 2 hours or whatever that was. And the reality was like, I didn't have to change anything about my activity. I actually had to just have small amounts of this for a little bit to realize that I didn't even really want it in the first place. So it's like allowance, I think, is really healing. I'm hearing that that's been the journey you're on, is like, you know, maybe it's like over drinking and then, okay, now I'm super sober, and you're finding, sometimes I think we have to get to the opposite extreme to find the balance, like you did. And that's been a common story, I think, for lots of people. But then you can come into something and you can have that healthy relationship with it. But yeah, it's that like doing less, I think, is so healing. And I really feel like the women who are listening to this needed that medicine. So I really appreciate you bringing it on here. And there's so much more I feel like we could talk about. You're right, it does all change when you become a mom. And I want to add that perspective as we close out for women who are in that mother archetype, you know, that it's that same pressure of you have to do it all. And you see these people on Instagram who are like, you know, breastfeeding their baby in a perfectly snatched body postpartum while working on their laptop at the beach with a margarita. And it's like, that is so not typical. I've never seen anybody do that in my actual. And we have to like take the step back and realize, okay, there was no 5-step morning routine before this podcast. I had in the back of my head, I really want to have my energy clear. I want to be there for Taylor to hold this space. I want to be there for the women who listen. But the truth was, you know, we were up all night, and then I woke up, and thankfully my husband was home. So he made her breakfast and got her ready. I got ready. They ran out the door and I ran with my coffee over here. You know, it's not, this was the 5-step routine today. What am I going to do? Not up and say, oh, because I didn't pull my cards and do an ice bath and align my chakras. I mean, we're all about those things, obviously. That's why we're here. It can't all be this like, you know, this like regimen. Yeah. Isn't it so funny how like our culture in America makes fun of like the Europeans for having like, you know, big breaks in the middle of the day? People are like, gosh, like nothing's open in Italy or Spain from like 1 to 3. It's like, yeah, because people like actually take a break and they live long, right? It's like, how come so weird? Wow. Well, we could talk forever. It is time for us to wrap. I love this podcast. And when season 2 starts up in the fall/winter, I'm definitely going to be reaching out to you to have you back on, because I feel like you have so much to share. And I'm curious how this period of doing less is going to go for you. I see this being such a catalyst. And sometimes in life, it's like we're like a slingshot. You know, we have to pull ourselves back to then go so much further forward. And I see for you. And as a guide, I just want to thank you for your spiritual service to this earth by resting, because that is really what we're here to do. And we can't show up for the work that we do and the vibrations that we hold in this life without that period of rest and integration and getting a little lost so that you can find yourself again in this new rhythm. And I trust that this is going to be so abundant for you emotionally, spiritually, financially, physically, in ways that we will get to see. So thank you for holding that pillar of rest. And I'm going to take that with me in the ways that I hold this podcast, because I'm used to, when I was a professional journalist, I didn't say anything. I would just ask people questions and then go home. And so now that I have a book, sometimes I almost overfill spaces with my own perspective. And the thing I want to take with me is pausing and just receiving the person I'm interviewing and just letting there be spaciousness. And so thank you for allowing me that invitation to do less, even here. Totally. At the beginning of this episode, you guys saw that I was talking to Taylor about her big three, and I thought it was really interesting how she is traveling on her Pluto line in astrocartography, and her sun is in Scorpio, and Scorpio is ruled by Pluto. If that made no sense to you, that's okay. Or if it did and you're just a little bit curious how that might relate to you in your own journey, you can book an astrocartography reading with me or a natal chart reading with me. You can go to my website. The link is in my show notes, and I'd be so happy to do that for you. And the reason why I'm so passionate about astrocartography specifically, which is locational astrology, so it's it shows you different types of experiences that can manifest in certain parts of the world, different places that might be optimal depending on what you're trying to manifest. And it can also provide a lot of healing around past experiences when you lived in different places. I know for me, I had my spiritual awakening in my Neptune line in Southern California. And it was really healing for me to see that spelled out in my astrocartography after the fact. Because when I moved from New York to Southern California, some people thought I was going a little crazy. But the truth is, I moved from my Mars line, which is all about action, working, momentum, passion, and sometimes aggression, conflict, and anger. When I moved from that energy to my Neptune line of spirituality, of mysticism, of sleepiness, almost dreamlike energy, that was obviously a big shift. It was cool and very healing for me to go back and see, I was actually just astrologically aligned. So if any of that resonates with you, you can book a reading with me. The link is in the show notes. And now let's get
for taking the time to listen to this episode of the Wild Wisdom podcast. Really enjoyed this podcast. Go ahead, like, share, and subscribe to spread this wisdom to other sisters who might need it.